I guess this didn't last too long. Hey everybody, I'm Cortes, and I'm a Critic, and welcome back. We're doing a recap of the 2025 NFL season. We are today in the AFC West, and we'll be talking about the, yes, hear me out, the division winners of the Denver Broncos, a team that was literally one ACL tear away from going to the Super Bowl, and a matter of fact, you can make the argument they were probably a snowstorm away from still getting there. So let's talk about the Denver Broncos. And like one time washed up quarterback would say, Bronco country, let's ride. Okay, so I know Denver fans don't want to hear it, but you guys did everything right. You did everything right. And probably beyond expectations. But to have Bo Nix, your starting quarterback, have an ACL tear in a game that you may put in hindsight, maybe we probably should have not wasted our time and actually tried to beat the Bills earlier to avoid it, but injuries, that is something that you really can't really prepare. You can try to, but it sometimes situations happen in sports. All athletes know that story. But then you played against the Patriots, and I saw that game, and you saw that touchdown. To sudden you're thinking, okay, we got it. The defense was going to be solid, and I really believe the snowstorm probably was one of those X variables that came out of nowhere that just says, wow. Not only do we have a quarterback that sadly has not proven anything in the NFL, but now we have to deal with elements, because that whole game really took away any possibility from the Broncos, that I felt like even if they were to win, might have seen the similar thing with what Seattle did. The defense would harass the quarterback, make him look inferior. The defense would do his best but couldn't stop anything, and eventually Seattle will pull out the win. That's if Bo Nix was not playing, of course. I mean, I have been a big Bo Nix supporter since Auburn. And when he went to the NFL and people criticized Sean Payne thinking, oh, you got Bo Nix because he was the last of the thing. How many Denver fans out there that would love to admit publicly to the local friends at the local bar in Denver, Colorado, and say, I wanted J.J. McCarthy? Find those people out there that were very upset about Bo Nix being selected by the Broncos who wanted JJ. Find those people, make sure they buy you a beer because they owe you an apology. Because now you have Bo Nix and you guys feel very excited. Now, granted, I do hear that he's not the greatest of all time, or like even make you feel more confident, but that's what good coaching is. Good coaching can make a quarterback that's considered to something worthy. But I can't help but feel like you guys would be a lot happier with Bo Nix than you do with JJ. I had you guys at best 11-6. But if things would have went off the rail, because sometimes that happens, an 8-9 season and darn just missed the playoffs. You went 14-3 and told me to shut the F up forever. So, what was the big surprise for me was the defense was lights out. Sean Payne's coaching, and I feel like Bo Nix not being the reason for Denver's, losses. Even though there were some games you were kind of feeling like, we won, but Bo Nix didn't make me feel any confident. Sometimes you get things like that. No one should be upset about a win. I don't care how bad your quarterback play. And Denver fans, a guy named Tebow, and you guys went through a whole season of don't care how badly he plays as long as we get the W. That's all that matters. But I believe you guys are much more enthusiastic with Bo Nix than Tim Tebow. Somebody might call him Tim Tebow 2.0, but those people just, they never liked Tebow, so they just want someone else to bash over. But Denver went above and beyond, and you should be proud of it. ACL injury at the last game of the season in the playoffs does put that time window. Watch my Kansas City video. We talk about ACL timeline of recovery. And boy, getting an ACL tear that late in the season is going to take a lot longer and chances of him coming back healthy. Plus, you don't want to rush him. Nobody wants an RG3. But Denver fans, I think that they should be very happy. And also realize that, yeah, coaching does matter. But your best game to showcase, which I felt like was I think a lot of people saw it too because it was a 4 o'clock game, but it was a game that I felt really showed everybody Denver needs to be taken just as seriously as the Rams and of course the Patriots, but they got Patriots had the easy schedule. Was Week 15 versus the Green Bay Packers. Nothing says a good old fashioned, reminiscent nostalgia than Denver Green Bay in a game that matters. As we all know about the Super Bowl with Elway getting his first ring and finally getting that monkey off his back. But this was a game that people thought was a Super Bowl preview. And if Green Bay probably didn't choke to Chicago, probably would have been a Super Bowl preview, or at least made it closer than what it was. The game that was so interesting about it was it really showed, at least to a lot of us, that Denver is a team that can compete with the so-called big boys of the NFL, and Green Bay was that kind of team that was considered one of the teams that they'll get hot toward the end, they'll make a run for it, don't count them out, Green Bay all the way. And Denver was always viewed as they're not beating, the top team, they're beating the B minuses and C pluses. So this was a statement game to make us all feel that Denver can compete with the big boys. Plus, it was one of their flexing moments. Everything was fantastic about their good rushing attack, no turnovers. Everything was fantastic. Well, sorry, no turnovers, no sacks. My apologies. Misread the note. There was one turnover, but no sacks given up, and they harassed the Packers. So this, to me, was Denver's best game because it showed they handled the big boys. Clever segue to your worst game, which was, sadly, next week. Funny enough, both these games were at home, so you had a great home game to cheer, and then in comes Jacksonville, a team that people thought you were going to be. But yeah, by the way, Week 16 versus Jacksonville was your worst game for two big reasons. One, you just had a big emotional win at home. Denver fans were just cheering in the streets, going yeah, and then here comes Jacksonville, an opponent you probably more than likely was going to compete in the playoffs. Funny how things turned out. And Jacksonville came in and just smacked you out. Now, fans out there, I do believe an emotional drain sometime with athletes and some teams. Sometimes you have a big win, and then the next week you kind of seem not overconfident, but I feel like the emotional turmoil is kind of takes a dip. And Jacksonville's the team that took advantage of your dip, and they showed out with velocity. I mean, granted, you had 450 yards basically of offense, but Jacksonville, for whatever reason, took advantage of a lot of the Denver's inabilities to be consistent in that game. So Jacksonville coming into your house, not only did it probably demoralize the Denver, which funny enough, you guys still became the number 1 seed, so not a complete loss. But let's talk about how that was it was like stubbing your toe on a bookshelf, and then the dictionary on the top bookshelf falls and lands on the foot. That's what it was. It was a big ow, ow. So it was shocking. Good thing Jacksonville didn't do it, because I don't know if Jacksonville would have beaten Buffalo and you guys would have faced Jacksonville, would things have been different? We'll be talking about Duval. Please no. But that's the worst game because it was in your house after an emotional win, and Jacksonville kind of, in a weird way, kind of told you to sit down, shut up in a moment. But like I said, you guys became the number one seeded team. You guys got the bye, so wasn't a complete, oh darn. It was just, like I said, a major stub toe. Now, your MVP for it, I have to give it to Bo Nix, not because he's the quarterback, but because there was a lot of time, in a very similar way how Baker Mayfield very early in the year in Tampa was considered the MVP, even though he didn't have the numbers that made it sound like it, was that a lot of it was his, heroic playability, his scrambling, those crucial down conversions. That kind of what helped do it, but Denver had a way better defense than the Bucs did, so, I will give the credit to the defense wholeheartedly for what they have done. But to me, Bo Nix was it, and I kind of really showed a lot, especially in the AFC Championship game, on how you guys missed Bo Nix. Not saying that Jared Sim couldn't do it. I really feel like the snow probably really hindered, probably made his limited opportunities even more limited because the snow made it harder. And yeah, it's kind of hard to put that kind of pressure when you're dealing with a dominant defense and the weather implements. You know, talk about drawing 2 L cards in the first deck. So, but Bo Nix, for what he had been able to do, and plus he didn't suffer really a sophomore slump, and he just feel like he's getting better, more confident. I do believe he still needs help on the offensive side, so that'll be something we need to address there. But before we get to the draft pick, I want to talk about the grade, and the grade for Denver is an A. Not only did they go above and beyond my expertise or my predictions, I should say, but the fact that they won the division, because I thought they were going to make the playoffs. I didn't think they might win the division because I felt like that was Chargers and Chiefs to lose. But they went above and beyond. They won the division, got the #1 seed. So they went above and beyond. If they would have won the Super Bowl, they would have won an A+, no questions asked, let's move on. But to me, they got the short end of the stick of the ACL injury in the AFC Championship game. That probably took a lot of things out of them. Not maybe also probably emotionally too. But yeah, A+, you guys deserve it. Now, when it comes to the draft, I always find it very hard for teams that make it to the conference championship. And according, like I said, we are in the middle of free agency. We are officially like day 1, day 2 of free agency. So players already moving left and right over it. I'm trying to keep a refresher here, so this will definitely not be dated when this video comes out in a day or two. But Denver, Seattle, New England, the Rams, a lot of those teams feel like they have a lot of things already secured. A lot of their veteran players are there. No one's really on the cusp of being let go, or we're going to try free agency and never come back. So looking at the needs of it, I rely on other sources for the needs for the Denver Broncos. And the needs I keep thinking here for them is, they said top priority is probably a tight end because Ingram's, but I always felt like they need a #2 receiver, or at least another receiver to help. I mean, Cortland Sutton, he barely got 1,000. He got 1,017 yards, you know, and he was clearly like 300 yards more than Franklin, who was the #2 receiver. And Franklin, I thought maybe the connection with Bo Nix and Franklin, both in Oregon, would help. But I feel like Franklin has been not really the good #2 compared. And Ingram, who had also 300 yards less than the second guy. So besides Sutton, your receiving core seems kind of meh for a quarterback in Bo Nix, who nearly had 4,000 yards passing. I feel like if you really want to, now that's all Deshaun Payton, I feel like you guys probably want to address the receiving core pick. But middle linebacker was also considered a weakness, and because it's the first pick of the draft and you're picking 30th, unless you trade in, I won't be surprised if you guys trade out to get more picks in the second round, go for more quantity than quality at times. But if you guys do, with the 30th? With the 30th overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Denver Broncos will select, or should select, or maybe select, C.J. Allen, linebacker, Georgia. I feel like by one of the things there. I've heard people talk about defensive line, but I feel like the defense was #2, and some instances #3. So the defense to me didn't really feel that big of like a need, but I understand schemes and having player personnel could help make up for a good scheme. Get the right ingredients, make the recipe taste delicious. So, but I'll go with linebacker because I don't know how many pass rushers edge-wise will be there at #30, or who'll be willing to put for a first-round pick grade. But that is what the people are saying. I'm kind of agreeing with a linebacker of a middle linebacker. But if for some reason they go with a receiver to make up for it, I know, like I said, the top tier receivers may not be there, and some of the receivers that will be left are more of a second round grade, but probably can still sneak into it. I will say with the next pick, I will say they'll go with Denzel Boston, wide receiver, Washington. Or, like I said, I doubt the Oregon title will be there, so not. But Denzel Boston will probably be the guy that I feel like he is a top tier second round pick that we picked up late in the first round. If Denver wants to get a potential wide receiver, especially if some of the wide receivers start going before they get a chance to get back to them late in the second round, you kind of want to get it when it's there, especially if you feel confident you want a #2 wide receiver instead of waiting to basically almost 60 picks to get that number receiver. But if for some reason, I know you guys addressed it with Harvey, but what if, because of Kansas City getting Walker, the Saints might go wide receiver, and we have seen it happen, that some people thought would be a top 10 first round pick drop. What if they get Jeremiah Love, running back Notre Dame? Now, I know you got Harvey. I know, and he has been fantastic. But I can't help but think of Sean Payton's thinking. Sean Payton's success in New Orleans, he had a good 1-2 punch with running backs he's had. He never put one as the workhorse. In a Super Bowl run, he had, dynamic dual running backs that were successful. And Love is so much more athletic than just a running back. I just feel like Sean Payton will take advantage of it. So for me, what if Love is available at 30 and Denver takes him? Just a thought, but those are the players I'm considering, potentially for Denver, because I don't think there's a tight end worthy of number 30. But then again, it's Sean Payton. He can do magic, so. But that is the Denver Broncos. That concludes them. And now we have one more team left in the AFC West. So we're going to Los Angeles to talk about the Chargers. As once again, they asked the question, is Justin Herbert really that good? Because he has no playoff wins, and every playoff performance looks like a terrible indication of the future. So we'll talk about the Chargers to conclude the AFC West. But until next time, I'm Cortez, and I'm a critic. Thank you so very much for watching.